14-year-old Quinn had been hiding in the basement for 2 weeks when she found the drawings. Maps of the house, every room labeled in shaky 8-year-old handwriting, exits marked in red crayon. Today's date circled in black marker so many times the paper had torn clean through. Then she smelled it. Gasoline. Sharp and wrong and deadly, seeping through the floorboards above her head like poison through skin. The second floor exploded into flames at exactly 5 o'clock on a Tuesday evening in November, and the sound was nothing like the movies. No dramatic whoosh, just a sudden roar like a living thing waking up hungry. 8-year-old Lily's screams pierced through the inferno, high and terrified, and calling a name that shouldn't have meant anything to anyone in that house. Quinn. Not mommy, not daddy, not help or please or God, just Quinn. The name of a ghost. The name of a 14-year-old homeless girl who'd been living in the basement for 14 days, surviving on stolen warmth and the kindness of a child who didn't know better than to feed crackers to strangers in the dark. Quinn could have run. The basement window was 3 steps away, 3 steps to the alley, 3 steps to invisibility, to safety, to the frozen Chicago streets, where she'd learned to disappear so completely that the world forgot she existed. 3 months homeless, 17 abandoned buildings, 23 nights she'd nearly frozen to death before finding this place, this basement, this furnace that kept her alive through nights when the temperature dropped low enough to kill. But Lily was screaming her name. And 4 minutes. That's all it takes. 4 minutes without oxygen for a brain to stop working, for a heart to forget how to beat, for a child to become a memory instead of a person. 4 minutes for everything that makes someone human to just stop like a candle snuffed out in wind too strong to fight. Quinn had exactly 4 minutes to decide who she was going to be. The invisible girl who survived by running. Or something else. Something she'd never been before. She chose the fire. But first there were the 14 days that led to this moment. 14 days of learning to be a ghost in someone else's house. 14 days of building a friendship in the dark with a little girl who saw her when no one else did. 14 days that would end in flames and choices, and a truth that would shatter everything Quinn thought she knew about who she was and where she came from. Welcome to a story about the invisible ones, the forgotten. The kids' society erases and steps over and leaves to freeze. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what you're about to witness isn't just about survival. It's about a 14-year-old girl who saved a life and discovered a family in the process. And before we go any further, let's take a moment for what matters most. Heavenly Father, we come before you now asking for your divine protection over everyone listening to this story. Bless their families, Lord. Heal their bodies, provide for their needs, and give them peace that surpasses understanding. Let your presence be felt in their lives today and surround them with your favor. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. Now, let's go back to where it started. 14 days before the fire, the night Quinn broke into a Hell's Angels basement and accidentally became part of a family she never knew existed. The emergency exit window shattered at 11:47 on a November night, cold enough to see your breath turn to ice crystals in the air. Quinn dropped into the basement of the house on Riverside Grove with practiced silence, her sneakers hitting concrete with barely a sound. The sneakers were 2 sizes too big, stolen from a Goodwill donation bin 3 weeks ago. The soles worn so thin she could feel every pebble through the rubber. But they were better than nothing. Better than the bare feet she'd had in August when her mother died, blue-faced in a supermart bathroom, with a needle in her arm and foam at the corners of her mouth. Catherine. Her mother's name had been Catherine, though she'd used at least 6 different last names that Quinn could remember. They'd moved 17 times in 14 years. Motels with stained carpets and locks that didn't work. Cars when the money ran out. Shelters when Catherine was sober enough to fake it through intake interviews. And when Catherine disappeared on benders that lasted days, Quinn learned to make herself small, invisible. The kind of kid social workers' eyes slid right past because acknowledging her meant paperwork and phone calls in a system too broken to care. 3 months since the overdose. 3 months of Chicago streets teaching Quinn lessons no 14-year-old should have to learn. The world doesn't save girls like her. It erases them, forgets them, steps over their frozen bodies on winter mornings, and keeps walking to jobs and families and lives that matter. But Quinn had survived. She was good at surviving, Good at noticing things, good at being invisible when invisible meant safe. The basement smelled like motor oil and old leather, and something metallic she couldn't quite place, not blood. She knew what blood smelled like. This was different, sharper, chemical. Her eyes adjusted to the darkness, finding shapes in the shadows cast by a single bulb hanging from exposed rafters. Motorcycle parts lined industrial metal shelves along the far wall, chrome exhaust pipes catching what little light existed, engine blocks wrapped in plastic like bodies waiting for burial. Tools hung on pegboards with the kind of military precision that made Quinn's survival instincts scream danger. This wasn't just any house. Someone lived here, someone organized, someone dangerous. But the weather report said 8 degrees tonight, 8 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to kill a homeless girl in her sleep, cold enough that broken ribs from hypothermia were better than the alternative. And this basement had a furnace, old, rattling, probably inefficient, but warm, gloriously beautifully warm. Quinn moved through the shadows like smoke, cataloging everything, because her life had always depended on knowing exits and hiding spots, and whether the people above her head were the kind who checked basements at 3 in the morning. Water heater in the corner, rust stains spreading like cancer across its base. Utility sink with a dripping faucet that counted seconds in the dark. A workbench covered in motorcycle manuals. The pages worn soft with used grease stains on covers, showing Harley-Davidson logos and engine diagrams Quinn couldn't begin to understand. And boxes, stacked against the wall in careful towers, each one labeled in angry red marker. Club business, do not touch. Property of Hell's Angels, MC Chicago chapter. Quinn's blood went cold despite the warmth of the furnace. Hell's Angels, motorcycle club. The kind of people who appeared on news reports about bar fights and federal investigations in territory disputes that ended with bodies and burned buildings. The kind of people who didn't take kindly to strangers in their basements. The kind of people who carried guns and asked questions later. She should leave, climb back through that window and find another squat, another abandoned building, another place to freeze slowly instead of quickly. But then the furnace kicked on with a mechanical groan that sounded like salvation, and heat poured into the basement in waves that made Quinn's frozen fingers ache as blood returned to extremities that had been going numb. 8 degrees outside. Survival inside. She found her hiding spot behind the furnace. A gap between the hot metal and the concrete wall just wide enough for a 14-year-old girl who'd gotten very good at making herself small. She curled into that space, pulling her torn jacket tight around shoulders and that showed bone through skin because she hadn't had a real meal in 4 days. Her stomach cramped with a hunger so constant it felt like a second heartbeat. 2 days since her last food. A half-eaten burger scraped from the dumpster behind Lou's Diner on 5th Street. The bread moldy green at the edges, but beggars don't have the luxury of being picky about mold. Above her, footsteps crossed the floor. Heavy boots. Deliberate. Weighted with purpose and muscle in a life Quinn couldn't imagine from her hiding spot among the shadows and the warmth. A man's voice, rough like gravel, scraped over asphalt, echoed through the ceiling. Loud enough for Quinn to hear every word. "Lily, lights out now!" A small voice answered, young, female, frightened in a way that made Quinn's chest tighten with recognition because she knew that fear. Had lived in that fear. The fear of disappointing the one person who was supposed to protect you. "But Daddy, I'm scared." Scared of what? The fire dream again. It's getting worse. Silence stretched so long, Quinn thought the conversation had ended. Then the man's voice softened in a way that surprised her. Like watching a wolf try to be gentle and not quite knowing how. Like someone who'd learned hardness first and tenderness as a second language, he didn't speak fluently. "Baby girl, that was just a nightmare. Nothing's going to hurt you here. You're safe. I promise." You promise you won't leave again, like you left before." The pause felt heavy, loaded with history Quinn couldn't see but could feel pressing down through the floorboards like weight made solid. Like guilt, like regret. "I'm not going anywhere, not anymore. Sleep now." "Okay, Daddy, I love you." "Love you too, kid." The boots walked away. A door closed somewhere upstairs. Then nothing but the mechanical hum of the furnace and Quinn's own heartbeat hammering against her ribs like it was trying to escape her chest. She waited 2 hours before allowing herself to sleep. Even then, her dreams were cold. Day 3 in the basement, Quinn learned the house's rhythm like a prisoner learns guard rotations. The man, whoever he was, left every morning at exactly 6:15. Motorcycle engine roaring to life in the driveway loud enough to rattle the basement windows and vibrate through Quinn's bones. The sound was different from cars, deeper, angrier. The sound of power barely contained, like a beast on a leash that could break free any second. He'd be gone until late afternoon, sometimes later. The girl Lily stayed home during the day. Homeschooled Quinn guessed from the lack of morning rush and school bus sounds. Sometimes Quinn heard her talking to herself upstairs, playing with toys, the one-sided conversations of an only child creating friends from imagination. Sometimes crying, soft and muffled, like she was trying to hide it even from herself. Sometimes just silence, which somehow felt worse than the crying, because silence meant thinking, and an 8-year-old shouldn't have thoughts heavy enough to create that kind of quiet. Quinn should leave, find another squat, another abandoned building, another basement that didn't belong to a Hell's Angel, with a daughter who had nightmares about fire. But the cold outside was killing people. She'd seen it on news broadcasts through shop windows as she walked past, trying to look like she had somewhere to be instead of nowhere to go. 3 homeless deaths last week. Hypothermia, frostbite. A woman found frozen solid under the Roosevelt Bridge ice crystals in her hair, like diamonds, her skin blue-white like marble. The invisible people nobody mourned. The ones the city swept away like garbage, like problems solved by pretending they'd never existed at all. So Quinn stayed invisible in the basement, rationing water from the utility sink, drinking from cupped hands in the dead of night, when the house above breathed with sleep. Surviving 1 hour at a time because that's all she knew how to do anymore. 1 hour, then another, until days became a week and the basement became less like a hiding spot and more like the closest thing to home she'd had since Catherine was still alive, enough to pretend she cared. Then came the screaming. 2:34 in the morning on her 7th night in the basement, Quinn jolted awake to the sound of a child's terror ripping through the floorboards like claws through paper. Not the normal sounds of nightmares. This was different, raw, primal. The sound of someone drowning in their own head. No, no, the fire. Please, somebody help me. Don't let me burn. Please, the smoke. I can't breathe, Uncle Ray. Please don't. Please, the fire, the fire. The boots thundered across the floor above. Fast, panicked. A door crashed open hard enough that Quinn heard something fall and shatter. Lily, wake up, baby. It's just a dream. You're not burning. You're safe. Come on, sweetheart, wake up for Daddy. Please, but the screaming didn't stop. It clawed at something deep in Quinn's chest, a memory of her own mother thrashing in withdrawal, begging for help. Quinn was too young to give screaming at demons only she could see. Catherine's hands clawing at her own skin, hard enough to draw blood. Catherine's voice hoarse from screaming. Catherine's eyes not seeing Quinn at all, just seeing whatever hell lived inside her head. Quinn pressed her palms against her ears, squeezed her eyes shut, made herself small, made herself nothing. But she couldn't unhear it. The sound burrowed into her skull and lived there. An 8-year-old girl screaming about fire and smoke, and someone named Uncle Ray who did something terrible enough to create nightmares this vivid, this consistent, this real. Every night after that, the nightmares came. Always around 2:30 in the morning. Always the same themes: fire, smoke, burning. Can't breathe, Uncle Ray. And every night the man, the father, would hold the girl until the screaming dissolved into whimpers and finally silence. Quinn found herself listening for it, waiting, worrying about a child she'd never seen, wondering what kind of nightmare could be that consistent, that specific, that terrifying. During the days, she explored the basement more carefully, found old newspapers in a recycling bin, the pages yellowed and brittle. She read about the Hell's Angels motorcycle club, territory disputes with rival gangs, bar fights that sent 6 men to the hospital, federal investigations into racketeering that went nowhere because nobody talks and everybody lawyers up. And buried in a 3-month-old edition of the Chicago Tribune, a small article about a club member named Jacob Steele who'd returned to Chicago after 15 years in Colorado. Recently discovered he had a daughter, learning to be a single father, human interest angle on a biker trying to go straight. The pieces clicked together in Quinn's head like puzzle pieces she wished she'd never found. the leather, the patches on the jackets she'd glimpsed through the basement window. The club business boxes, the military precision of the tool organization, the way the man's voice carried authority even when he was being gentle. Quinn was squatting in the house of a Hell's Angel. She should run, should disappear into the Chicago streets and never look back. Every survival instinct she'd honed over 3 months of homelessness screamed at her to get out before he found her, before those boots came down the basement stairs and discovered an intruder who'd been living in his house for a week. But where would she go? Every shelter was full. Every soup kitchen had lines around the block. Every other squat was either too cold or too dangerous, filled with men who looked at 14-year-old girls the way wolves look at wounded deer. And something about Lily's screams kept Quinn frozen in place, unable to leave. The sound of that terror, the consistency of those nightmares, the way the father tried so hard to be gentle and didn't quite know how. On the 8th night, Quinn made a decision that would change everything. She found the teddy bear while scavenging through the alley behind Riverside Grove Elementary School. Someone had left donation boxes outside the community center, probably for a charity drive that would never quite reach the people who needed it most. The bear was brown, missing one black button eye stitching, coming loose at the seams where stuffing threatened to escape. But it was soft, clean enough, the kind of thing a kid might hold on to in the dark when nightmares came calling. Quinn thought about Lily's screams, about the fear in her voice when she called for help that never came fast enough, about being 8 years old and terrified of shadows and fire, and things adults couldn't see, but children knew were real. At 3 in the morning, while the house breathed with sleep, Quinn crept upstairs for the first time. Her hands shook so badly she could barely grip the handrail. Every creak of wood felt like a gunshot in the silence. Every shadow looked like someone waiting to catch her. The house was different up here. Lived in, warm, filled with the small details of normal life she'd almost forgotten existed. Photographs on the walls showed groups of men in leather vests, arms around each other's shoulders, faces hard but smiling. Brothers. That's what they called each other. Brotherhood built on loyalty and violence, in codes Quinn didn't understand. A living room with a couch covered in motorcycle magazines, grease stains on the armrests. A kitchen with a child's drawing stuck to the refrigerator, with magnets, stick figures holding hands under a smiling sun, the word family written in crayon across the top in letters that wobbled with effort. Quinn found the door at the end of the hallway, pink paint slightly chipped at the corners. A hand-drawn sign in crayon taped to the wood. Lily's room. No boys allowed except Daddy. She set the teddy bear gently against the door, turned to leave and froze. Lily stood in the doorway of her room, materialized from shadows like a ghost herself. 8 years old, small and pale in unicorn pajamas that had been washed so many times the colors were fading to gray. Dark circles under eyes too old for her face, staring at Quinn with the kind of fear that could shatter glass or stop hearts. Quinn couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Her entire body went cold despite the warmth of the house. If this child screamed, Quinn was finished. Arrested, thrown into juvenile detention. Or worse, much worse. Because the man upstairs, the Hell's Angel, the father who carried a gun, he would not be gentle with strangers who crept into his house at 3 in the morning. He would not ask questions first. But Lily didn't scream. She looked at the teddy bear lying at her feet, looked at Quinn, looked back at the bear. Her expression shifted from fear to confusion to something else. Curiosity, recognition, the look of someone who knew what it meant to be scared and alone and different. Is that for me? Her voice was barely a whisper, soft, careful, like she was afraid speaking too loud might break whatever magic was happening. Quinn nodded. Her own voice had abandoned her completely. Thank you. Lily said it so quietly Quinn almost didn't hear. The girl picked up the bear and hugged it to her chest, one small hand covering the missing eye like she could protect it from whatever had hurt it before. What's your name, Quinn? The word came out barely louder than a breath. I'm Lily. Do you live in our basement? She should lie, should make up a story, should run. But something in Lily's eyes, the same deep loneliness Quinn saw every time she caught her reflection in a store window, made her tell the truth. Yes. Lily tilted her head, processing this information with the strange, flexible logic of children who haven't yet learned that some things are supposed to be impossible. Are you a ghost? I thought I heard someone downstairs sometimes. but Daddy said it was just the furnace making noises. No, just homeless. The word hung between them like smoke. Heavy, real, impossible to pretend away. Lily's expression softened in a way that made Quinn's chest ache. My daddy says homeless people need help, that people forget about them, but they shouldn't. Are you hungry? Quinn's stomach answered with a growl loud enough to make Lily's eyes widen. Wait here. The girl disappeared into her room and returned 30 seconds later with treasures clutched in both hands. A juice box, the kind with the bendy straw still attached. A sleeve of crackers slightly crushed but unopened. A granola bar that probably cost more than Quinn had seen in a month. I'm not supposed to have snacks after bedtime, but you look like you need them way more than me. Quinn took them with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The crackers felt like gold in her palms, the juice box like liquid salvation. Thank you, you don't have to. I know, Lily interrupted with the confidence of someone who'd made up her mind and wouldn't be argued with. But I want to. Nobody should be hungry. That's what Daddy says. He gets really mad when people are mean to homeless people downtown. She hugged her new teddy bear tighter, covering that missing eye like she could heal it through love alone. Don't tell my daddy you're here, okay? He gets really mad about strangers in our house. He's in a motorcycle club, the Hells Angels. They're really, really tough. He carries a gun. Ice flooded Quinn's veins. A gun. Of course there was a gun. I won't tell anyone. I promise. Good. Lily smiled for the first time, small and tentative, but real. I like having a friend, even a secret ghost friend, who's not really a ghost. She went back to bed, closing her door softly, leaving Quinn standing in the dark hallway holding crackers and a juice box and a granola bar, realizing she'd just made the most dangerous friend of her entire life. Day 14. They built a secret language out of necessity and kindness. Every night, Lily would leave food outside her door. Crackers, granola bars, half sandwiches wrapped in napkins with peanut butter, spread thick because 8-year-olds don't understand portion control. Apple slices in plastic bags. Once an entire slice of cold pizza that tasted like heaven, the cheese congealed and the pepperoni leaving grease stains on Quinn's fingers that she licked clean because waste wasn't something she could afford. In return, Quinn would leave small treasures she found during her daytime scavenging. A flower from Grant Park that hadn't quite died yet, purple petals still clinging to life despite the November cold. A smooth stone from the Chicago River shoreline, gray and round and perfect, for holding when you needed something solid. A comic book someone had left on a bus stop bench, pages, worn but readable superheroes saving the world in bright colors and impossible situations. Two broken kids helping each other survive in silence. Building a friendship neither of them had words for. Learning that sometimes family isn't about blood or last names or houses with picket fences. Sometimes family is crackers in the dark and teddy bears with missing eyes and someone who sees you when the whole world has learned to look away. Quinn learned things during those 2 weeks. Learned that Lily's mother had died 6 months ago in a hospital in Denver. Car accident, Lily had whispered one night when Quinn asked about the nightmares. Uncle Ray was driving. Mommy was trapped. The car caught fire. Uncle Ray got out. Mommy didn't. Learned that Lily's father, Steele, everyone called him Steele, though Lily said his real name was Jacob, had only just found out Lily existed. The mother had kept her a secret for 8 years. Didn't want the motorcycle club life touching her daughter. But then she died and there was nobody else, and Steele came to Denver and found a child he never knew he had, grieving a mother she'd watched burn. The nightmares made sense now. Not prophetic, just traumatic. A little girl's brain trying to process horror no child should have to carry. Steele was trying his best to be a father despite having no idea how. Quinn heard him watching YouTube videos about how to braid hair, his rough voice repeating instructions to himself like studying for an exam. Making school lunches with too much peanut butter and not enough jelly because he didn't know the ratio yet. Reading bedtime stories in a voice that didn't quite know how to be gentle, but was trying so hard. Quinn also learned that Steele's club brothers came by often. Too often. Their voices carried through the walls during late-night meetings in the living room. Loud, angry, using words that made Quinn press closer to the wall to hear better, even though she knew eavesdropping on Hell's Angels was probably the fastest way to end up dead in an alley somewhere. Liability. Weakness. The girl's going to get you killed, Steele. She's making you soft. Soft gets brothers buried. One night, Quinn heard something that made her blood freeze solid in her veins. A voice she didn't recognize. Harder than the others. Cold in a way that had nothing to do with temperature. Steele, you're compromised. The club can't have compromised leadership. Either the girl goes or you do. Simple math. You threatening my daughter? Steele's voice dropped to something deadly. Something that made Quinn's skin prickle with recognition. Because she'd heard that tone before in shelters and on street corners, right before violence erupted like a storm nobody could stop. Because if you're threatening my daughter, we're going to have a very different conversation. One that ends with me burying every single one of you in the Indiana cornfields, where nobody's going to find you until you're nothing but bones. That's real cute, real tough dad energy, but you can't watch her 24/7. Accidents happen, house fires, car crashes, kids disappear all the time in Chicago. Sad, but that's life. The threat hung in the air like smoke from a gun already fired. Get out of my house. We're just saying get at. The conversation ended with a door slamming hard enough to shake the walls and motorcycles roaring away into the November night, engines screaming fury and promises and warnings Quinn didn't fully understand, but felt in her bone. She didn't sleep that night. Neither did Lily. Quinn heard her crying softly upstairs until sunrise, November 18th, 4:47 in the afternoon. Quinn had made her decision. She was leaving tonight. The tension in the house had become suffocating, oppressive, dangerous, like breathing in smoke before you see the flames. She didn't want to be here when things exploded, and they were going to explode. She'd lived through violence to recognize the warning signs. The way Steele had started checking window locks obsessively every night before bed. The gun that appeared on the kitchen counter every morning, black metal catching light like a promise. The club members who drove by slowly at random hours, motorcycles idling outside the house watching, always watching. Quinn was packing her few belongings into the backpack she'd stolen from a garage sale 3 months ago, a spare shirt with holes in the armpits. The comic book Lily had given her carefully folded to preserve the pages. A photograph of her mother she'd salvaged from their old apartment before the landlord threw everything away. Catherine smiling in a way Quinn barely remembered before the drugs, before the darkness, when she'd still been a person, instead of a ghost haunting her own life. That's when she heard it. The furnace kicked on with its usual mechanical groan, but this time something rattled in the ductwork, something that didn't belong, something metal scraping against metal in a rhythm that was wrong off broken. Curiosity overrode caution. Quinn dragged a wooden crate beneath the heating vent, the kind Steele used to organize motorcycle parts, and climbed up. Reached inside. Her fingers closed around a stack of papers. Thick. Textured like drawing paper. She pulled them out, hands already shaking before she saw what they were. Her heart stopped beating. Lily's drawings. At least 20 of them hidden in the ductwork where no adult would ever look. But these weren't the cheerful crayon pictures stuck to the refrigerator, upstairs, the stick figure families and smiling suns. These were different, darker, horrifying in their specificity and detail. They were maps, detailed architectural sketches of the house layout drawn with the careful precision of someone who'd studied every inch. Someone who understood that details meant survival. Every room labeled in Lily's shaky handwriting. Kitchen, Daddy's room, my room, basement. Every window marked with numbers, 1 through 12. Every door numbered separately. Every exit circled with red X marks, the crayon pressed so hard it had torn through the paper in places. And in the corner of each drawing, a date circled over and over in black marker until the paper had torn completely through, leaving holes where numbers should be. November 18th, today's date. Quinn's hands started shaking so hard she almost dropped the stack. She flipped through the pages faster, her breath coming in short gasps that tasted like fear and understanding and horror. More drawings, flames rendered in orange and red and yellow crayon, consuming stick figure houses. The colors layered so thick the wax had started to crack and peel. Smoke drawn in thick black spirals that covered entire pages. Stick figures running, falling, burning. Their mouths open in screams Lily had tried to capture with jagged lines and scribbled darkness. And one drawing that made Quinn's blood turn to ice water in her veins, cold spreading through her chest, like drowning from the inside. A detailed sketch of a man in a leather vest. The Hells Angels patch clearly visible, even in crayon, the death head logo recognizable, despite being drawn by an 8-year-old's hand. The figure was pouring liquid from a container around the outside of a stick figure house. And in an upstairs window, a small stick figure watched. Hair drawn in yellow crayon. Arms raised like she was trying to warn someone, anyone, everyone. Above the figure in the window, Lily had written her own name in desperate letters that got bigger and more frantic across the page. Lily, 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 Lily. These weren't nightmares. These were premonitions, warnings, evidence. Lily had been trying to tell someone what was coming, trying to leave clues for whoever might find them. Maybe she'd even been trying to leave them for Quinn, the ghost in the basement who listened in the dark and understood what it meant to be scared and alone. The house was silent except for Quinn's breathing and the mechanical hum of the furnace and the distant sound of a television playing upstairs, where Lily was probably watching cartoons, unaware that her secret warnings had finally been found. Then Quinn smelled it, faint at first, almost masked by the motor oil smell that permeated the basement, the leather and grease and mechanical odors that had become background noise over 2 weeks, but unmistakable once she recognized it. Gasoline, sharp, chemical, wrong, seeping through the floorboards from somewhere upstairs, spreading pooling, waiting. Quinn dropped the drawings. They scattered across the concrete floor like fallen leaves, Lily's desperate warnings lying useless at her feet because Quinn had found them exactly on time and exactly too late. She ran for the stairs, taking them 3 at a time, her worn sneakers slipping on wood, but catching, propelling her upward. Her feet hit the main floor just as she heard it, the soft whoosh of ignition, like someone lighting a gas stove, but much, much louder. The sound of accelerant meeting flame. The sound of murder beginning. The second floor exploded into flame. Fire raced across the ceiling with impossible speed, feeding on accelerant trails Quinn couldn't see, but could smell everywhere now. Gasoline painted in paths and patterns and purpose designed to spread fast and burn hot and kill everything in its path. Smoke poured down the stairwell in thick black clouds, the kind of smoke that kills you before the flames ever touch your skin. Heat slammed into Quinn like a physical force, making her skin prickle and her eyes water instantly. And somewhere in the inferno above, cutting through the roar of flames and the crash of something collapsing, Lily started screaming. Quinn, Quinn, help me, I can't get out. Please, the door won't open. Quinn, please. She was calling for her, not her father who was God knows where, probably at the clubhouse, probably too far away to help. Not 911, not neighbors, not God. Her, the homeless girl in the basement, the secret friend she'd been feeding crackers in the dark. The ghost who wasn't really a ghost, but was about to become one if she made the wrong choice in the next 3 seconds. Quinn looked at the basement door behind her. 3 steps, maybe 4 if she was being careful. 4 steps to the alley. 4 steps to outside, to safety, to invisibility again. She could disappear into Chicago and no one would ever know she'd been here. No one would blame her. No one would even remember her name. She looked at the burning staircase leading to the 2nd floor, where an 8-year-old girl was screaming her name like a prayer, like a plea, like the only word that mattered in a world made of fire and smoke and the smell of gasoline, covering up the truth that someone wanted this child dead. And Quinn made the choice that would change everything. She covered her face with her jacket and ran straight into the fire. The staircase was a tunnel of flame. Quinn took the steps 2 at a time, her jacket pressed against her mouth and nose, breathing through fabric that smelled like 3 months of street living and her own fierce sweat. Her eyes streamed tears that evaporated instantly in heat so intense it felt like standing too close to the sun. The wallpaper peeled away in burning strips, falling like toxic snow, each piece carrying embers that caught on Quinn's clothes and burned through to skin. The smoke was thick, black, suffocating, the kind that fills your lungs with poison and makes you dizzy and confused and dead before the flames ever touch you. Quinn felt it happening, felt her head getting light, felt her thoughts starting to scatter like birds startled by gunshots. Lily, where are you? My room, I can't open the door. Quinn, please. Her voice came from the left. Quinn crashed through the smoke arms outstretched like a blind person, her burned hands finding walls that were hot enough to blister skin on contact. The upstairs hallway was an inferno. Flames crawled across the ceiling like living things feeding on something that made them burn hotter, faster, hungrier than any natural fire should. The accelerant. The gasoline someone had painted in patterns designed for maximum destruction. This wasn't an accident. This was murder, dressed up like tragedy. She found the door. The pink paint was already blistering, bubbling under the heat like skin burning. The handle scorched Quinn's palm when she grabbed it, but she held on anyway because pain was temporary and Lily dying was permanent. She twisted hard. Locked. Locked from the outside. Someone had locked an 8-year-old girl in her room and set the house on fire. Someone had planned this, had drawn it out like an execution, had walked away while a child burned. Quinn slammed her shoulder into the door once, twice, 3 times. The wood cracked but held. Behind her, part of the ceiling collapsed in a shower of sparks and burning timber, cutting off the route back to the stairs she'd just climbed. She had seconds, maybe less. Lily, move away from the door. Quinn kicked it with everything she had, all the anger of 3 months homeless, all the grief of watching her mother die, all the fury of being invisible in a world that erased people like her and expected them to be grateful for the privilege. The door frame splintered. One more kick and it burst inward, wood-flying hinges screaming. Lily was on the floor by her window, unconscious. Smoke inhalation. Her small body wasn't moving, wasn't breathing. The unicorn pajamas Quinn had seen her wear for 2 weeks were covered in soot. The colors turned gray-black by smoke that had stolen all the oxygen from the room before Quinn could get there. 4 minutes. It had been 4 minutes since Quinn heard the first scream from the basement. 4 minutes of brain-killing, life-stealing time. 4 minutes for Lily's heart to forget how to beat. Quinn scooped the girl up in her arms, so light it terrified her, like holding a bird with hollow bones, like holding something precious and breakable that the world wanted to destroy. She turned back toward where the stairs had been. The hallway was completely engulfed now. The main staircase had collapsed into a pile of burning rubble. No way out that direction, no way down, no way to do this safely or smartly or with any kind of plan that made sense. Quinn ran to the window instead, still cradling Lily against her chest. The glass was hot enough to hurt through her jacket. She wrapped her fist in fabric already singed and smoking and punched through. Safety glass spiderwebbed and fell away in chunks, some pieces catching her skin and drawing blood that mixed with burns and soot. Cold November air rushed in, feeding the fire behind her, making it roar louder, making the heat at her back feel like hell itself reaching out to drag her down. Quinn looked out. Second story, 15-foot drop onto frozen grass and concrete, and November ground hard as stone. She could survive that. Probably. Maybe. But Lily in her arms, unconscious and fragile and not breathing, there was no probably about it. There was only definitely hurt or definitely dead, and Quinn was out of time to choose anything but the least terrible option. She climbed onto the windowsill, held Lily tight against her chest, one arm under the girl's knees, the other cradling her head. The way you hold babies in movies when you're trying to protect them from the world. The way Quinn's mother used to hold her back when Catherine was still sober enough to remember that love meant protection. And Quinn jumped. The impact drove the air from her lungs in an explosion of pain that turned her vision white. Her ankle screamed as something twisted wrong on landing ligaments, stretching past their breaking point bones, grinding together in ways they weren't designed to move. But she rolled, protecting Lily's body with her own, taking the impact on her shoulder and back and hip, and came up on the front lawn gasping and coughing and alive. Lily wasn't breathing. Quinn laid her flat on the grass, frozen blades crunching under the girl's weight. Her hands shook so badly she could barely control them. Adrenaline and fear and smoke inhalation making her movements jerky and uncertain. But she'd seen this before. Once. At a school assembly years ago, when Chicago Fire Department had come to teach CPR and Quinn had actually paid attention because even then, some part of her knew that survival meant knowing how to bring people back from the edge of death. 4 minutes. That's how long it had been since Lily stopped breathing. 4 minutes since her brain had started dying from lack of oxygen. 4 minutes of irreversible damage piling up second by second while Quinn fought through fire to reach her. She tilted Lily's head back, opening the airway. checked for obstructions with fingers that left bloody prints on the girl's chin, started chest compressions on a rib cage so small Quinn's hands seemed huge by comparison. 30 compressions, counting desperately in her head. 1, 2, 3. Feeling ribs flex under her palms, praying she wasn't breaking them. Praying it didn't matter if she was. Come on, Lily. Come on. Don't leave. Please don't leave me. Not after I finally found someone worth saving. Not after you saw me when nobody else did. Please. 30 compressions. 2 rescue breaths. Tilt head, pinch nose, seal lips over lips that were turning blue from oxygen deprivation. Breathe. Watch for chest rise. Breathe again. Lily's chest didn't move. Subscribe now because what happens next will haunt you. 30 more compressions. Quinn's burned hands left bloody prints on Lily's pajama top mixing with soot and ash. Sweat and smoke residue dripped into Quinn's eyes, making them sting worse than they already did. Around them, neighbors were emerging from houses, phones out filming everything. Recording this moment for social media and news stations and whatever came next. Red and blue lights flashed in the distance, sirens welling closer but not close enough. Never close enough when seconds meant the difference between life and death. Come on, Lily. Come on, please. I didn't jump through fire to watch you die on frozen grass. I didn't choose you over invisibility to lose you now. Please. Breathe, just breathe. 2 more breaths. Watching desperately for any sign of chest movement. Was that rise from Quinn forcing air in, or was it Lily's lungs trying to work 30 compressions? Harder this time. Faster. Quinn's training was street knowledge and desperation, not medical school. She might be breaking ribs. She might be doing everything wrong. But doing nothing meant watching this child die while her house burned behind them, and that wasn't acceptable. That would never be acceptable. Another breath, another. Please, please, please. Then Lily coughed. Water and bile erupted from her mouth, her body convulsing as lungs tried to remember their job. Quinn turned her on her side, supporting her head, watching as the girl's chest heaved with the effort of breathing. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused, terrified pupils dilated, from smoke and trauma and being yanked back from the edge of death. But open, alive. Quinn, her voice was barely a whisper, raw, damaged from smoke and screaming. But it was her voice. Lily's voice, not a memory, not a ghost, a living, breathing 8-year-old girl who just survived murder. I'm here. You're okay. You're safe. My daddy. Lily's hand clutched at Quinn's jacket, weak but desperate. We'll find him. Just breathe. Keep breathing. Don't stop breathing. The crowd of neighbors had grown. 20 people, 30, all filming, all witnessing. Quinn heard fragments of their conversations floating through the air, like the embers still drifting from the burning house behind them. Homeless kid just saved her. Went into the fire. Did you see that? She did CPR. Is she even trained? Someone needs to call her father. The videos are already going viral. Look at this. 4 million views. Then came the sound that made Quinn's blood freeze despite the heat of the burning house warming her back. Motorcycles, not 1 or 2, dozens, hundreds. The thunder of engines roaring from every direction, converging on this house like a steel stampede. The ground literally vibrated with the sound tremors running through frozen earth and up through Quinn's body where she knelt on the grass, still holding Lily. The crowd scattered as motorcycles poured onto the street. 10, 20, 50. More kept coming, filling every available space, blocking roads, creating a wall of leather and chrome and barely contained fury. Riders dismounted in synchronized movements, the kind of coordination that came from years of riding together, from brotherhood built on codes and loyalty and violence when violence was required. The patches on their backs all identical. Hell's Angels, Chicago chapter. 1,000 motorcycles filling the street, in the yards, and every space where a bike could fit, all of them here for one reason. A single motorcycle cut through the crowd, bigger than the others, louder. The engine's roar somehow distinct from all the others, like an alpha wolf's howl cutting through the pack. The rider was massive, 6'4" of leather and muscle, and rage so intense it seemed to warp the air around him. He pulled off his helmet, and Quinn recognized him from the photographs inside the house. Steele, Lily's father. The man whose house Quinn had been squatting in for 2 weeks. The Hells Angel, whose daughter was lying on the grass in Quinn's arms, covered in soot and coughing up smoke, but alive because a homeless stranger had chosen to run into fire instead of away from it. Steele's eyes found Lily first. Something broke in his expression. Fear so raw it looked like physical pain, like watching his heart get ripped out through his chest. Then his eyes found Quinn, a 14-year-old homeless girl holding his daughter, a stranger who shouldn't exist, who shouldn't be here, who had no right to be cradling the most important thing in his world. Steele's hand moved to his waistband, to the gun Quinn knew would be there. His voice was deadly quiet somehow, cutting through the roar of 1,000 idling motorcycles and the crackling flames and the chaos unfolding around them. Who the hell are you? And why were you in my house? 1,000 bikers closed in around them, a circle of leather and steel and judgment. Quinn was trapped, surrounded, holding the only thing keeping her alive, the 8-year-old girl who'd fed her crackers in the dark and called her friend when the whole world had called her nothing. I was in your basement. Quinn's voice came out stronger than she expected, cutting through the rumble of 1,000 idling engines and the crackle of flames consuming the house behind them. Her hands still rested on Lily's shoulders, the girl's breathing ragged but steady alive against all odds in physics and the 4 minutes that should have killed her. I'm homeless. I was looking for somewhere warm. That's all. Steele's jaw clenched so hard Quinn could see the muscle jumping beneath skin tanned from years of riding under open sky. His hand stayed near his waistband near the gun she couldn't see, but knew was there the same way prey knows when predators are close. My basement. The words came out slow, measured, deadly. For how long? 2 weeks. The crowd murmured around them, 1,000 witnesses, 1,000 judgments being formed in real time. Quinn heard their whispers like wind through dead leaves. 2 weeks. She was living there the whole time. Steele didn't know. How does someone hide in your house for 2 weeks? One of the bikers stepped forward, older graybeard, streaked with white leather vest, worn soft with age and use. His name was Garrett Quinn, would learn later, one of Steele's most trusted brothers. He pulled out his phone, fingers moving quickly across the screen. Steele, you need to see this. The man handed over the phone. On the screen, shaky video footage showed Quinn jumping from the second-story window with Lily in her arms. Showed her hitting the ground hard, rolling to protect the small body cradled against her chest. Showed her doing CPR with hands that left bloody prints on unicorn pajamas. Showed her begging, pleading, her lips moving in words the video didn't capture, but everyone could read in the desperation of her body language. Please, come on, don't leave. Breathe. The timestamp said the video had been uploaded 4 minutes ago. The view count was already past 50,000 and climbing in real time as they watched. 60,000, 70,000. Going viral while they stood there, while smoke billowed into the November sky, while neighbors kept their phones raised and recording. Steele watched the video twice. His expression was unreadable, carved from stone and old rage, and something else Quinn couldn't identify. Maybe disbelief, maybe horror, maybe the terrible mathematics of realizing his daughter had been seconds from death and a stranger had saved her. Behind them, the house groaned, and part of the roof caved in, sending sparks spiraling into darkening sky like demonic fireflies. Another biker called out from near the burning structure, voice cutting through the chaos. Steele, the fire was set. I can smell the accelerant from here. This wasn't an accident. Someone tried to kill your kid brother. The crowd erupted, voices shouting over each other, accusations flying, rage building like pressure in a closed system with nowhere to go, but out, explosive and dangerous. But Steele's attention was locked on Quinn. His eyes moved from the phone to her face, really looking at her for the first time, seeing past the soot and burns and torn jacket, seeing a 14-year-old girl who'd just done the impossible for reasons he didn't understand yet. Who said it? His voice dropped to something sub-zero. Did you see? Quinn's mouth went dry. She'd been so focused on Lily, on the CPR, on keeping an 8-year-old heart beating, that she'd almost forgotten the most important detail. I saw someone running from the back door right when it started, wearing a leather vest. Your patch. The words fell like grenades into the assembled crowd. Silence. Complete and total silence, except for burning wood and distant sirens finally getting close enough to matter. Then Steele's voice, so quiet it was almost gentle, which somehow made it more terrifying. You're saying one of my brothers tried to burn my daughter alive. It wasn't a question. It was a death sentence waiting to be carried out. Quinn met his eyes. I don't know who it was. I just saw the vest. Your colors. Someone who had access. Someone who knew the house. Steele turned to face the assembled thousand, a sea of leather and chrome and loyalty that had just been poisoned by betrayal. His voice carried across them like thunder. Listen up. Someone in this club just tried to kill my 8-year-old daughter. Someone locked her in that room and lit this house on fire and walked away while she burned. And I'm going to find out who. The sirens were close now. Fire trucks rounding the corner. Red lights painting everything in shades of blood and warning. Police cars right behind. The video on social media was exploding. Quinn could see people in the crowd refreshing their phones, watching the view count climb. 1 million. 2 million. This was going viral in real time, this moment of truth and fire, and a homeless girl holding a biker's daughter on frozen grass. Steele pulled another biker close, a younger man with tattoos crawling up his neck. Whispered something urgent that Quinn couldn't hear. The man nodded and melted back into the crowd, disappearing between motorcycles and leather-clad bodies. Then Steele turned back to Quinn. His expression had shifted. Not softened exactly, but changed. Calculating something she didn't understand yet. You're coming with us. What, why? Because you're the only witness. Because my daughter trusts you. His eyes swept across the assembled bikers, lingering on faces Quinn couldn't see. And because if someone in my club wants her dead, they might want to eliminate witnesses too. Two massive bikers moved to flank Quinn. Not touching her, not threatening, but not giving her a choice either. Protection or prison? Quinn couldn't tell which. Is this protection or am I under arrest? Depends. Steele leaned closer, his voice dropping so only Quinn could hear over the approaching emergency vehicles. On whether you're telling me everything. But understand this, kid. If I find out you had anything to do with this fire, anything at all, I'll make sure they never find your body. Are we clear? Quinn's blood turned to ice, but she met his eyes and didn't look away. Crystal, and I'm telling you everything. The EMTs rushed toward them, breaking the standoff. Professional voices calling out commands, hands reaching for Lily, checking vitals, asking questions. Quinn barely heard through the ringing in her ears. They loaded Lily onto a stretcher oxygen mask covering her small face, and Quinn felt something tear in her chest watching them take her away. But one of the bikers in the back of the crowd caught Quinn's eye as the ambulance doors closed. The man's vest was damp at the hem. His hands were too clean for someone who'd supposedly been working on motorcycles all day. And when he saw Quinn looking, something flickered across his face. Fear, recognition, guilt. Then the man turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd of leather in suspicion before Quinn could say a word, before she could point him out, before anyone else noticed. The traitor was still here, still watching, and now he knew that Quinn had seen his face. The Hells Angels clubhouse sat on the outskirts of Chicago, hidden behind chain-link fence and enough razor wire to fortify a military installation. Quinn had never been more terrified in her life. 20 motorcycles escorted her there in a convoy that moved through city streets like a steel snake, deliberate and deadly. Steele rode up front. Quinn sat in the back of a truck driven by a silent biker who hadn't spoken a single word during the 15-minute drive, just kept his eyes on the road and his hand near something under his jacket that Quinn desperately hoped wasn't a gun. They'd left Lily at Northwestern Memorial Hospital with half a dozen club members standing guard outside her room. The doctor said she'd survive. Smoke inhalation, minor burns, trauma that would take years to process, but alive, breathing on her own, calling for Quinn even as they sedated her for the night. Now Quinn sat in a metal folding chair in the center of the clubhouse's main room, surrounded by 40 bikers who looked at her like she was either a hero or a threat. Maybe both. The room smelled like cigarette smoke and motor oil and barely controlled violence. Steele stood directly in front of her arms, crossed over a chest that looked capable of crushing ribs if he chose. Behind him, a wall covered in photographs. Club members, bikes, runs to rallies across the country. A family Quinn didn't belong to. A brotherhood built on loyalty she'd never understand. Start from the beginning. Steele's voice was calmer now, but that somehow made it worse, like the stillness before a tornado. Every detail. Why were you in my house? Quinn's mouth was dry. Her burned hands throbbed. Her ankle, probably sprained from the bump, sent jolts of pain up her leg every time she shifted weight. But she told the truth, all of it. The cold that drove her to break in, the desperation of 3 months on Chicago streets, hearing Lily's nightmares every night, the teddy bear, the secret friendship, the food Lily had left her, the drawings she'd found in the heating vent just minutes before the fire, the smell of gasoline, the choice to run into flames instead of away. The bikers listened in absolute silence. Some expressions softened as she talked about Lily feeding her crackers in the dark. Others hardened with suspicion, perhaps wondering if this was all an elaborate con, a long game played by someone too young to be that calculating. But you never knew, did you? People surprised you, people lied. When Quinn finished, Steele stared at her for what felt like an eternity. So my daughter has been feeding a homeless stranger for 2 weeks. A stranger I didn't know existed. Living in my house without my knowledge or permission. Yes, sir. And you expect me to believe you had nothing to do with that fire? I'm telling the truth. Truth is flexible, kid. Steele's voice went hard. I've heard 1,000 lies from people swearing on their mother's graves they were innocent. My mother's dead. The words came out quiet, final. Quinn met his eyes and didn't blink. Overdosed in August. I don't have anyone left to swear on, but I'm telling you what happened. That's all I can do. Something flickered in Steele's expression. Not quite sympathy, maybe recognition. The look of someone who'd known loss and understood that some truths were too ugly to lie about. What was her name? Why does that matter? Answer the question. Quinn flinched at the command in his voice. Catherine, I don't know if she ever told me her real last name. She used different names, different IDs. We moved a lot. Garrett, the biker with the gray beard, who'd shown Steele the viral video, stepped forward from his position against the wall. His eyes had gone sharp, focused in a way that made Quinn's skin prickle. Catherine. He said the name like a prayer, like a curse. Brunette tattoo of a phoenix on her shoulder blade. Quinn's blood went cold. How do you know that? Garrett looked at Steele with an expression Quinn couldn't read. Something heavy passed between them. Something old and complicated and painful. Boss, we need to talk. Private. No, Steele's jaw clenched. Whatever you're going to say it here. In front of everyone. We don't have secrets when someone tried to kill my daughter. Garrett hesitated. Then he pulled out his phone, scrolled through photos with fingers that weren't quite steady, stopped on one, and turned the screen toward Quinn. The photograph showed a woman maybe 15 years younger. Healthier. Smiling in a way Quinn barely recognized. But it was her. It was Catherine. Standing next to a younger version of Steele, both of them on motorcycles, her mother's arms wrapped around his waist, her head tilted against his shoulder like she belonged there. Quinn's breath caught. She couldn't speak, couldn't process what she was seeing. Where did you get that? The words came out as a whisper. Steele took the phone, stared at the photo. The color drained from his face like someone had opened a vein and let all the life pour out. That's not possible. Catherine left Chicago 16 years ago, said she was pregnant, but didn't want club life for her kid. I gave her money, told her to call if she needed anything. She never did. Pregnant? Garrett's voice was careful, too careful. With your kid, the room erupted. Voices shouting over each other, questions firing like bullets. But Quinn could only hear the rushing in her ears like ocean waves or blood pumping too fast through veins trying to understand what was being said. Steele looked at Quinn like he was seeing her for the first time, really seeing her. His eyes moved across her face, cataloging features she'd never thought about. The shape of her nose, the line of her jaw, doing mathematics that didn't require a calculator. How old are you? 14. When's your birthday? March 7th. Steele closed his eyes. Jesus Christ, March 7th. Catherine called me in June 15 years ago. Said she'd had the baby. A girl. Said she was clean and handling it. I offered money support, whatever she needed. She refused. Said she didn't want the club life touching her kid. I respected that. Sent money anyway through a third party for years, until about 4 years ago when the money started getting returned. I thought she'd gotten stable, gotten out, made something of herself. She didn't. Quinn's voice came out bitter. Angry in a way she hadn't let herself be angry in months, because anger required energy, and energy required food and hope and things she didn't have. She got worse. Pills, then needles. We lived in motels when we were lucky, cars when we weren't, shelters when she could fake sobriety long enough to pass intake. She'd disappear for days, and I'd learn to steal food, lie to social workers, be invisible, so they wouldn't put me in foster care. The clubhouse had gone silent. Every biker staring, witnessing, processing the impossible. Their president had just discovered a daughter, a 14-year-old daughter who'd been homeless for months while he lived 20 miles away, completely unaware she existed. A daughter who'd saved his other daughter's life. Someone burst through the door, young biker out of breath, phone in hand. "Boss, the video, it's at 10 million views." National news picked it up. CNN, Fox, everyone's running with it. Homeless hero saves biker's daughter. They're calling Quinn a guardian angel. "Guardian angel," someone in the back muttered. "Kids literally steals blood." Steele stood abruptly. The chair scraped against concrete with a sound like nails on a chalkboard. See? He looked at Quinn, and something in his eyes was different now. Softer. Desperate in a way that big men aren't supposed to be desperate. "DNA test. We do this properly. No assumptions, no maybes. But if," his voice cracked, "if you're really my daughter, then everything changes." "Everything changes how?" Quinn asked. "Because then this wasn't just an attack on Lily. This was an attack on my entire family. Both my daughters. And whoever did it knew about you somehow, knew the connection. This wasn't random arson. This was calculated murder." Garrett pulled up security footage on a laptop, the screen glowing blue in the dim clubhouse. "We've been reviewing cameras from businesses near your house. Got something from the convenience store across the street." He turned the screen around. Grainy footage showed a figure in a Hell's Angels vest approaching Steele's house at 4:32 p.m., 15 minutes before the fire. The person moved deliberately, carrying something, a container. They disappeared around the back of the house, exactly where Quinn said she'd seen someone running. "Can you enhance the image?" Steele demanded. "Already did." Garrett zoomed in on the vest. "Look at this. That patch on the right side. That's a road captain patch. Only 12 brothers in our chapter have that designation. 12 suspects out of 1,000. Steele's expression went arctic. "Give me the names. Give me their locations for the last 6 hours. Give me everything." "Already on it, boss." Quinn watched all of this unfold with growing dread. The truth was surfacing piece by piece. Her mother's hidden past, her father's identity, the target on Lily's back that might have extended to her. All the secrets coming into light at once, blinding and terrible. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. The cracked, barely functional thing she'd shoplifted months ago. A message from an unknown number appeared on the screen. "You saw my face. That was a mistake. If you tell Steele, your little sister dies next. Stay quiet or she burns." Quinn's hands started shaking. The traitor had her number, had been watching close enough to get her contact information, was threatening Lily's life if Quinn talked. But Quinn had already told Steele she'd seen someone, hadn't given details, hadn't pointed anyone out. But the traitor didn't know that. The traitor thought Quinn could identify him, like this video if you'd stay silent to save her. Quinn, Steele's voice cut through her panic. He was looking at her with concern that felt wrong, coming from a man who'd threatened to bury her body not an hour ago. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Quinn gripped her phone tighter. Every instinct screamed to show Steele the message, to ask for help, to let the Brotherhood handle it. But the message was clear. She burns. If Lily died because Quinn talked, that blood would be on her hands forever. Before she could answer, the door burst open again. A young biker, different from before, practically falling through the entrance. "Boss, it's the hospital. Lily's room. Someone tried to get past security. One of our guys. He had a syringe. Said he was bringing her medicine, but the nurses didn't authorize it. We detained him." Steele's voice went deadly. "Who? Torch. Your road captain. The one who recruited 15 brothers last year." 12 suspects. Now 11. Or was this another distraction, another layer to the conspiracy? Quinn's head spun, trying to keep track of who was lying and who was telling truth, and whether anyone in this room could be trusted at all. Bring him here. Now. Steele's command left no room for argument. 10 minutes later, Torch entered the clubhouse flanked by two massive bikers who looked ready to break him in half if given the word. He was mid-40s, heavily tattooed with the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. The kind of smile that made Quinn's survival instincts scream danger in a voice loud enough to drown out everything else. Steele, brother, this is a misunderstanding. I was trying to help. Bringing Lily her medication like a good uncle should. The nurse says no medication was ordered. Then the doctor screwed up the paperwork. Simple mistake. But sure, make me the villain because I'm the one asking logical questions. What questions? Torch's eyes found Quinn, and something cold moved behind them. Questions about this homeless kid nobody's ever heard of who conveniently appears in your house for weeks without anyone knowing. Then magically she's the hero when a fire starts. That's textbook manipulation, Steele. Classic long con. The room divided. Quinn could see it happening in real time. Some bikers nodding along with Torch's logic. Others looking skeptical, remembering the video footage. The brotherhood fracturing along fault lines of trust and suspicion. The video doesn't lie, Garrett countered. We all saw her jump from that window, saw her do CPR. Those burns on her hands are real. Burns are easy to fake. Torch spread his hands in a gesture of reasonableness that felt rehearsed. Self-inflicted injuries to sell the story. She gets herself hurt just enough to look believable, saves the girl, and suddenly she's family. Next thing you know, she's asking for money, a place to stay, club protection. It's a grift as old as time. Quinn's phone burned in her pocket, the threat still glowing on the screen. Stay quiet or she burns. But Torch's accusation was forcing her hand. If Quinn stayed silent to protect Lily, everyone would believe she was a con artist, would throw her back onto the streets. Or worse, there's another explanation. Quinn's voice cut through the argument. All eyes turned to her. What if someone wanted Lily dead because of what she represents? Steele's vulnerability. His weakness, like everyone keeps saying. But what if there's more? What if whoever set that fire knew about me too, knew I was in the basement, knew the connection? What connection? Torch scoffed. You're a random street kid. Quinn's voice grew louder. My mother was Catherine, the woman who left Chicago 16 years ago pregnant with Steele's child. The woman who kept me away from club life until she died. The woman who maybe died because someone wanted to make sure I stayed lost. The room went absolutely silent. Steele's face transformed. Grief and rage and realization crashing together like tectonic plates creating earthquakes. When did your mother die? August 19th. Garrett was already pulling up something on his laptop, fingers flying across keys. August 19th. That's the same day Torch was in Chicago. Said he was visiting family. I was visiting family. Torch's voice cracked at the edges. My sister lives in Lincoln Park. Your sister moved to Phoenix 2 years ago, another biker said slowly, recognition dawning. I helped her load the moving truck. Remember, it was July, hotter than hell, and we packed that U-Haul in 90-degree heat. The accusation hung in the air like smoke from a gun already fired. Torch's expression shifted, just for a fraction of a second, a flicker of something cold and calculated before the innocent mask slammed back down. But Quinn saw it. So did Steele. Show us your phone, Steele said. Excuse me? Your phone. Show us your call history, text messages. Prove you weren't near that house today. This is ridiculous. I'm not showing you anything. I have rights. Club bylaws say. Club bylaws say when a brother's family is threatened, all protections are suspended pending investigation. Garrett's voice was iron. Show us the phone, Torch. Or refuse and confirm everyone's suspicions. Torch's hand moved toward his waistband. 3 bikers drew guns faster than Quinn could blink. The room erupted in shouting chairs, scraping bodies moving. Quinn dove behind a table as Torch pulled his weapon, not aiming at the bikers with guns trained on him, aiming at Quinn. Nobody moved. Torch's voice was different now. No more smooth manipulation, just raw desperation. This kid ruins everything. Everything. Steele was supposed to be broken after the fire, supposed to step down from president. I was supposed to take over, lead this club the way it should be led. But this little rat had to play hero. Steele's voice was ice given form. You killed Catherine. You tried to kill my daughter. You tried to kill my other daughter. Your daughter was never supposed to exist, Torch screamed, the gun shaking in his hand. Catherine promised she'd stay away, promised she'd never come back to Chicago, but she started asking questions 3 months ago, started sniffing around, wanted to know if you'd moved on, if you had other kids. She was going to expose everything. Expose what? That Lily isn't your only child. Torch's mask shattered completely. Catherine contacted me, said she needed money, said her daughter was sick and she needed help. She remembered me from the old days, thought I'd help her out for old time's sake. Instead, I made sure she never talked, gave her a hot dose, made it look like another junkie relapse. Easy, clean, problem solved. Quinn couldn't breathe. Her mother. Her mother had been murdered, had been trying to get help for Quinn, trying to reach out, trying to connect with the father Quinn never knew existed, and it had killed her. And Lily, Steele's voice shook with barely controlled fury that could level buildings if given physical form. Kill or break you, make you step down. Simple plan. I'd take over, make this club strong again. But I didn't know about the kid in your basement. Didn't know Quinn existed until she jumped out that damn window with Lily in her arms. You want to know why I locked that door from the outside? Because I wanted to make sure no survivors, no witnesses, no complications. The guns didn't waver. Torch was surrounded, trapped, confessed to everything. But his weapon was still pointed at Quinn's head. Here's what's going to happen. I'm walking out of here. And if anyone tries to stop me, I put a bullet in this kid's brain. Then I disappear. Mexico, Canada, doesn't matter where, you'll never find me. You won't make it to the door, Steele said. Try me. The standoff stretched. 40 armed bikers, one traitor, one hostage. Quinn could see the calculations happening behind Steele's eyes. The impossible mathematics of saving your daughter versus letting a murderer escape. Then Quinn's phone buzzed. Everyone heard it in the tense silence. The notification tone cut through the room like a blade. Who's texting you, kid? Torch demanded. Quinn didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Check it. Right now. Show everyone. With shaking hands, Quinn pulled out her phone. The new message glowed on the cracked screen, visible to everyone close enough to see. Torch isn't working alone. I am, and I'm already at the hospital with Lily. Clock's ticking, little niece. The message came from a different, unknown number. But attached was a photo that made Quinn's heart stop. Lily's hospital room. Lily asleep in her bed, oxygen mask on her, face EV in her small arm. And standing over her wearing a visitor's badge and a Hell's Angels vest was Garrett, the biker with the gray beard, the one who'd been helping them all along, the one who'd shown them the security footage, the one who'd backed Quinn's story from the beginning, the one who'd been playing both sides, like this video, because Lily has minutes left. Steele saw the photo. His face went white. Garrett, no, not you. Garrett, standing physically in the clubhouse, smiled sadly. In real time, he pulled out his own phone, showed them a live stream of Lily's hospital room. The footage showed him standing over her sleeping body. I'm not actually there right now, Garrett said calmly, setting his phone on the table where everyone could see the feed. That photo was taken an hour ago when I went to check on her. But my partner is in that room right now with a syringe full of the same thing we gave Catherine. And if Torch doesn't walk out, appear free and clear, Lily gets a hot dose straight into her IV. Painless, quick, tragic. You son of a... I'm the one who raised you, Steele. Garrett's voice stayed calm. Too calm. The calm of someone who'd planned this moment for years. Taught you everything about being a man, being a leader. Made you president of this chapter when you were too young for the responsibility. And you got soft. First, Catherine made you weak. Then you chased her to Colorado like a lovesick puppy. Then you came back with not one but two daughters, letting sentiment cloud your judgment. The club doesn't have room for weakness. Subscribe now because what happens next will shatter everything. Steele's voice was broken. How many others are part of this? Garrett smiled. More than you think. Less than you fear. But enough to make sure Lily dies if you make the wrong choice. So decide, brother. Torch walks free and we all forget this happened. Or your daughter dies and you live with that choice for the rest of your life. You have 30 seconds. The clock on the clubhouse wall ticked impossibly loud. 29 seconds, 28, 27. And Quinn realized with horrible certainty that unless she did something someone she loved was going to die. Either she stayed silent and let two murderers walk free, or she spoke up and Lily paid the price. 26 seconds. But Quinn had spent 3 months surviving on Chicago streets. 3 months learning that when powerful people played games with lives and guns and threats, the invisible ones had advantages nobody anticipated. She was still invisible to them in the ways that mattered, still underestimated. 24 seconds. Wait, Quinn's voice cut through the tension like a knife. I have something to say. Shut up, kid. Torch started pressing the gun harder against her temple. Garrett, you said you took that photo an hour ago, right? You said your partner is in Lily's room right now, ready to inject her if we don't let Torch walk. Garrett's expression flickered. Just a fraction of uncertainty. That's right. Then you're lying. The room went absolutely silent. Quinn's voice grew stronger, fed by the desperate clarity that had carried her through 3 months of survival by noticing details others missed. Because Lily is wearing different pajamas in your photo. The hospital gave her green ones when they admitted her. Standard pediatric issue. The ones in your picture are blue. Her unicorn pajamas from home. The ones she was wearing before the fire. Every biker's eyes shifted to Garrett's phone, displaying the photo, then back to Quinn. The IV bag in your photo says saline solution. Clear label, blue writing. But the news crew showed footage of Lily's room 20 minutes ago when they did their evening update. She's on glucose now for her blood sugar. Different bag, yellow label, different IV stand entirely. You're using an old photo from when you visited this afternoon, pretending to be the concerned uncle to fake a hostage situation that doesn't actually exist. Steele's hand was already moving to his phone, dialing hospital security with fingers that shook with rage and hope in equal measure. This is Jacob Steele. Check my daughter's room right now. Don't announce yourself. Just look inside and tell me exactly who's in there. 15 seconds of silence that felt like 15 years. Quinn could hear her own heartbeat, could feel Torch's hand trembling against her head, could see Garrett's carefully constructed plan unraveling in real time. Then Steele's expression hardened into something carved from stone and fury. 2 guards at the door, 2 nurses inside doing vitals. No visitors. No one else has been in that room except authorized medical staff for the last 45 minutes. You lying piece of... Torch started. The clubhouse door exploded inward, not with violence, with overwhelming numbers. 50 more bikers poured through the entrance, the ones who'd been stationed outside supposedly on perimeter duty, but actually listening through cracked windows and recording everything on their phones. They'd heard every word, every confession. Torch admitting to murder. Garrett confessing to decades of betrayal. 2 men they'd called brothers, revealing themselves as monsters. One of them, a massive biker with arms like tree trunks, spoke directly to Garrett. You taught us loyalty was everything. Taught us brotherhood was sacred. Taught us codes and honor and protecting our own. Guess you forgot to practice what you preached. The guns in the room shifted, realigned. No longer pointed at each other in confused standoff. Now 40, 50, 90 weapons aimed at 2 traitors surrounded by a brotherhood they'd catastrophically underestimated. Torch's gun wavered at Quinn's head. I'll still kill her. I'll put a bullet in her brain before any of you can stop me. Quinn dropped. Just let her legs give out completely, using her smaller size and gravity to slip straight down through Torch's grip like water through fingers. The gun discharge sound exploding in the enclosed space, deafening, ringing through Quinn's skull like church bells made of violence. But the bullet went high, punching through acoustic ceiling tiles and embedding itself in wooden rafters. Then Steele moved. Quinn had never seen anyone move that fast. Her father, because that's what Steele was, what biology and circumstance and DNA tests would prove in 48 hours, crossed the distance in 2 explosive strides. Disarmed Torch with brutal efficiency, learned from decades of violence, and had him face down on concrete in under 3 seconds. The gun skittered across the room, kicked away by another biker. Other club members swarmed Garrett before he could draw his own weapon, pinning him with coordinated violence that came from years of riding together. It was over in less than 10 seconds. Quinn lay on the cold, concrete floor, ears ringing from the gunshot, tasting dust and motor oil, watching her father kneeling on the back of the man who'd murdered her mother, who'd stolen Catherine's life with a poisoned needle and called it mercy. Steele twisted Torch's arm at an angle that made Quinn wince. The snap was audible over the ringing in her ears. Torch screamed. How many others? Steele's voice was barely human, something primordial and savage replacing careful control. Go to hell. Another twist, another snap, another scream. How many? Five. Five. Torch gasped through agony. 5 of us total, me, Garrett, 3 others. We had it planned for months. Kill Lily to break you, force you to step down, take over leadership, make the club strong again, without sentiment and in weakness dragging us down. But that kid, his eyes found Quinn with pure hatred. That homeless little rat ruined everything. 5 traitors in a club of 1,000 members. The math shouldn't have mattered, but somehow it did. 1,000 minus 5. 995 who'd stayed loyal, who'd chosen to stand with their president even when it meant turning against brothers they'd ridden with for years. Federal agents arrived within the hour, taking statements, making arrests. Torch and Garrett were charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy, arson, attempted murder of a minor. The 3 other conspirators were identified through phone records and security footage within 24 hours. 2 prospects and a veteran member who'd been with the club for 8 years. All of them singing like canaries once they realized the game was over. The DNA test results came back 2 days later in a plain manila envelope that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Steele opened it in a temporary apartment he'd rented while his house was investigated as a crime scene. Quinn sat across from him at a kitchen table scarred with coffee rings and motorcycle grease. Lily was upstairs sleeping, recovering well enough that the hospital had released her into her father's care with strict instructions about rest and monitoring. 99.98% probability of paternity. The words swam on the page. Steele read them twice, then looked up at Quinn with tears in his eyes. Actual tears running down the face of a man who'd probably killed people with his bare hands, who'd built a reputation on being harder than the metal they called him. You're my daughter. His voice broke. I have 2 daughters. I should have known. Should have found you. Should have. You couldn't have known, Quinn said softly. Mom made sure of that. She was protecting me the only way she knew how. By keeping you away from me, by letting you live on the streets, by dying and leaving you alone. By trying to give me a normal life. Quinn's own eyes were wet now. Even if it didn't work out that way, even if the people she trusted betrayed her, she tried. Steele reached across the table and took Quinn's burned, bandaged hands in his own scarred ones. I'm not going to let you down. I don't know how to be a father to a teenage daughter. Hell, I barely know how to be a father to an 8-year-old. But I'm going to learn. We're going to figure this out together. You're not invisible anymore. You're not alone. You're family. The word hung in the air between them. Family. The thing Quinn had been missing for 3 months. For years before that, when her mother had been more ghost than parent. Family. 2 weeks later, Quinn stood on the porch of a safe house 40 miles outside Chicago. The place was hidden behind 60 acres of Indiana farmland, 3 security fences, 12 cameras, motion sensors on every approach road, 20 bikers on site at all times. It was a fortress, and Quinn was its prisoner. Not literally, but the effect was the same. Her phone buzzed. The 7th message that day. Unknown number. Untraceable. Always personal details that made her skin crawl. The photo showed Quinn at age 7, gap-toothed and smiling, standing next to Catherine at Navy Pier. Quinn barely remembered that day. Thought all the photos had been lost when they'd fled their apartment 3 years ago. The message beneath it read, You have her eyes. Catherine's eyes. She used to take you to the pier every summer. Did you know that before the drugs? Before she chose Steele's world over her own family? Before she forgot where she came from? I never forgot. I've been watching you your whole life, little niece. Waiting. Quinn deleted the message with hands that no longer shook. You couldn't live in fear forever. Eventually your body ran out of adrenaline, and all that remained was cold certainty that something bad was coming, and you'd deal with it when it arrived. The door opened behind her. Steele stepped out, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. Black the way they both drank it now. Learning to be father and daughter without a manual. Another one, Steele asked, nodding at the phone in Quinn's hand. 7th today. Photo from when I was 7. Navy Pier. Quinn took the coffee. Ghost knows things she shouldn't know. The FBI's working on it, tracing the routing, looking for patterns. They won't find anything. Quinn's voice was flat. Whoever this is, they're too careful, too patient. Been planning this for years, not weeks. Steele's jaw tightened. The ghost called you niece in the messages. If she's Catherine's sister, we're trying to track down your mother's family tree. But Catherine used so many different names, different identities over the years. It's like trying to find a ghost chasing a ghost. Maybe that's the point, Quinn said. Maybe she wants us to know she's out there without being able to stop her. Psychological warfare. Make us paranoid until we're seeing threats everywhere. You're thinking like someone who survived by being 3 steps ahead. I survived by being invisible. Now I'm the most visible person in America. Quinn gestured at her phone. 60 million views on that video. My face is everywhere. The ghost doesn't have to find me. She just has to wait for me to make a mistake. You're not making any mistakes. You're protected here. Protected or trapped, Quinn turned to face her father. We can't stay here forever. Lily needs to go back to school. You need to run the club. I need to figure out what my life looks like now. And hiding in Indiana while someone sends me creepy texts isn't living, it's just existing. What are you suggesting? Quinn met his eyes. That we stop waiting for her to come to us. That I make myself visible in a way she can't resist. That we set a trap. Absolutely not. You're 14 years old. I'm 14 and I saved your daughter from a burning house. I'm 14 and I exposed 2 traitors in your club. I'm 14 and I survived 3 months on Chicago streets. Quinn's voice gained strength. I know you want to protect me, but I'm not helpless. And the ghost knows it. That's why she's targeting me specifically, because I'm the one who ruined her plan. Steele stared at his daughter. The instinct to keep her safe warred with the knowledge that she was right, that waiting was just prolonging the inevitable. Finally, he sighed. 48 hours. We planned this right. Every detail, every contingency. And the second I think you're in real danger, we pull you out. Understood. Understood. They spent 2 days planning. The location was obvious. Grant Park, where Quinn had found the flower she'd given Lily weeks ago. Open space. Multiple sight lines. Easy for bikers to position themselves without looking suspicious. Saturday afternoon. Maximum crowd. The ghost wouldn't try anything obvious in front of hundreds of witnesses. But she'd wait for Quinn to move to a secondary location. Somewhere quieter, somewhere that felt safe but wasn't. On Friday morning, Quinn posted to social media for the first time since the video went viral. A photo of Chicago's skyline at sunset. Caption simple and direct. 2 weeks in hiding is long enough. Coming home tomorrow. Grant Park at 2 p.m. Time to stop being afraid. Time to be visible. For all the invisible kids out there, this one's for you. Within an hour, 50,000 likes. Within 3 hours, national news outlets were covering it. Homeless hero returns to Chicago. Brave teenager refuses to hide. The narrative was perfect. Exactly what they needed. And somewhere Quinn knew the ghost was watching. Planning. Getting ready to make her move. Saturday came cold and clear. Quinn dressed carefully. Her Hell's Angels prospect vest worn openly over everything else. Let the ghost see it. See that Quinn wasn't alone, wasn't unprotected, but was still willing to be visible. Still willing to be found. The drive to Chicago took 40 minutes. Steele drove in tense silence. 30 bikers were already positioned throughout Grant Park in civilian clothes, forming an invisible perimeter. At 2 p.m., Quinn walked through crowds of families and tourists, hyper-aware of every face, every person who looked too long. That's when she saw the woman. Not in the park itself, but in the reflection of a store window across the street. Mid-30s, dark hair like Catherine's, watching from a coffee shop entrance. The woman smiled, mouthed 2 words. Hi, niece. Quinn's blood froze. Then her phone buzzed. Nice try. But did you really think I'd be stupid enough to walk into your obvious trap? I'm not here for you, Quinn. Check your security cameras at the safe house. Check Lily's room. Quinn pulled up the app with numb fingers, cycled through cameras. Living room clear, kitchen clear, Lily's room empty. The bed was made, the window was open, and on the pillow sat a single piece of paper with a message written in black marker. Trade. You for her. Come alone to the address below, or I inject her and you find her body in the Chicago River. You have 1 hour. The world tilted. Quinn's vision narrowed to a tunnel. Lily, the ghost had somehow gotten past all the security, all the guards, all the protection they'd built. Quinn ran back to where Steele was waiting. She didn't care about being subtle anymore. Didn't care about the plan. The ghost has Lily. Her father's face went white as Quinn showed him the phone, the empty room, the impossible message that meant everything had already gone wrong. That's impossible. We have 20 men at that location. Security everywhere, cameras on every approach. Steele's voice carried the edge of a man watching his world collapse in real time. But Quinn was already moving, sprinting back toward the truck, her sprained ankle screaming protest with every step. The woman across the street had vanished into the Chicago crowds like smoke dispersing in wind. A distraction, a decoy, a way to keep Quinn and every biker focused on Grant Park while the real threat operated 40 miles away in Indiana. Steele caught up to her at the truck, his hand on her shoulder, stopping her from climbing in. We go tactical, full force. Surround the warehouse, she specified. Overwhelming numbers. And she'll see you coming and kill Lily before you get within 100 yards. Quinn pulled free, desperation making her voice sharp. She's been planning this for how long? Watching us, she knows how you think. She knows how the club operates. This is the only move we didn't prepare for because we thought Lily was safe. You're not going in alone. I don't have a choice. Quinn's eyes burned, but she refused to let tears fall. She's my sister, my family, and this is my fault. I'm the one who suggested the trap. I'm the one who made myself visible. I'm the one the ghost wants. Steele looked at his daughter, 14 years old, and carrying weight no child should have to bear. Every protective instinct he'd been learning over the past 2 weeks screamed at him to lock her in the truck and handle this himself. But the mathematics were brutal and simple. If Quinn didn't show up alone, Lily died. If he brought backup, the ghost could see Lily died. If they waited, Lily died. 50 bikers positioned 3 blocks from the warehouse. You wear a wire. We listen to everything. The second, and I mean the absolute second, I think you're in real danger, we come in. And Quinn, his voice cracked. If something happens to you, if I lose both my daughters because I let you walk into this, I won't survive it. Do you understand? Quinn understood. She also understood she didn't have a choice. The warehouse district looked exactly like every crime scene Quinn had ever glimpsed on television screens through shop windows. Abandoned buildings with windows like empty eye sockets. Graffiti covering brick and layers of forgotten names and broken promises. Empty lots filled with rusted machinery and the corpses of dreams that had died decades ago. The kind of place where people disappeared and nobody asked questions because asking questions meant caring, and caring about the forgotten required energy this city didn't have to spare. Quinn walked alone down the center of the street. The wire under her vest transmitted her heartbeat and breathing to Steele and 50 brothers waiting 3 blocks away, close enough to respond if she signaled, far enough that the ghost wouldn't see them coming. The distance felt like miles, felt like the gap between living and dying. The warehouse address matched an old textile factory, 5 stories of red brick and shattered windows, and the architectural corpse of American manufacturing. The front door hung open, creaking in wind that smelled like winter and rust and endings. Quinn stepped inside. Darkness swallowed her whole. The only light came from holes in the roof where afternoon sun pierced through in dusty beams that looked like spotlights waiting for actors who'd never take the stage. I'm here. Her voice echoed off concrete and steel and emptiness. I came alone like you asked. Let Lily go. Footsteps echoed from somewhere above. A woman's voice, calm and controlled, and carrying the kind of patience that came from years of planning this exact moment. Did you really come alone, Quinn? Or is Daddy Dearest waiting 3 blocks away with his little army? I can see the wire from here, you know? The bulge under your vest. But it doesn't matter. I expected that. I would have done the same thing. Quinn didn't respond, didn't confirm or deny. Come upstairs. 3rd floor. And Quinn, don't try anything heroic. I have a syringe pressed against Lily's neck. Same thing I gave your mother. 1 push and she's dead in 90 seconds. The poison works fast. Painless, they say. But you'll never know for sure, will you? Quinn climbed the stairs. Each step creaked under her weight loud enough that Steele would hear it through the wire, loud enough to count, to track her progress, to coordinate the response if everything went wrong. The second floor was gutted. The third floor opened into a large, empty space where machines had once hummed with productivity and purpose. Now just emptiness. Windows on all sides provided sight lines in every direction. Perfect defensive position. Hard to approach without being seen from 100 yards out. And in the center of the room, sitting in a metal folding chair, with her hands zip-tied behind her back and duct tape covering her mouth, was Lily. The 8-year-old's eyes were red from crying, but she was alive, conscious, terrified but unhurt. When she saw Quinn, she tried to scream through the tape, tried to warn her, or beg for help, or maybe just say the name of the person who'd saved her once and was walking into death to try saving her again. Standing behind Lily, one hand on the child's shoulder and the other holding a syringe pressed against her neck, was a woman Quinn's brain recognized even though they'd never met. Mid-30s. Dark hair like Catherine's, same bone structure, same eyes that had looked out from Quinn's mother's face before the drugs hollowed her out. Family resemblance was unmistakable, undeniable, written in genetics, in the architecture of cheekbones, in the shape of mouths that knew how to smile the same way. This was Catherine's sister, Quinn's aunt, the ghost made flesh. "Hello, Quinn." The woman's voice was soft, almost gentle. "I'm Raven, your mother's sister, your aunt, and I've been looking for you for a very long time." Quinn couldn't speak, could barely breathe. The syringe at Lily's neck caught afternoon light, filtering through broken windows, the liquid inside amber and deadly, and one squeeze away from ending everything. Why? The word came out hoarse. "What do you want? Justice." Raven's eyes never left Quinn's face. "Your mother abandoned our family for a biker. Got pregnant, ran away, chose Steele's world over her own blood. Our parents died waiting for her to come home. Died hoping she'd get clean, get help, come back to the people who actually loved her. She never did. And when she finally tried to reach out 3 months ago, tried to reconnect after 16 years of nothing, I made sure she couldn't." The pieces clicked together in Quinn's head, like puzzle pieces forming a picture she'd been seeing wrong this whole time. "You killed her. It wasn't a question. I ended her suffering." Raven's voice stayed calm. Too calm. She was already dying, Quinn. Already too far gone. The drugs had destroyed everything she used to be. I just made it faster, cleaner, and I made sure she'd never lead Steele to you, never drag you into this world the way she'd been dragged into it. You wanted to protect me. Quinn's voice rose despite her efforts to stay controlled. By killing my mother, by trying to kill Lily, by terrorizing us for weeks. I wanted Steele to suffer. Raven's grip tightened on the syringe. The way my parents suffered watching Catherine choose him over family. The way I suffered being the responsible one, the forgotten one, the daughter who stayed while everyone worried about the addict who left. But then you saved Lily, became a hero, got accepted into the club, became everything Catherine was supposed to be. And I realized killing you would be too easy, too quick. I needed you to understand first. Needed you to see what this life costs. What being visible costs when you're someone people can actually see and hurt and destroy. So you took Lily to prove a point. I took Lily to give you a choice. Raven's voice went hard, sharp as the needle she held. The same choice Catherine had. Family or the club. Your blood family, the sister connected to you by genetics and shared history and Catherine's memory. Or the found family. The little girl you saved. The father you barely know. The brotherhood built on violence and loyalty and codes you'll never fully understand. Choose. I'll let one of you walk out of here. Just one. You decide which. Quinn looked at Lily, her little sister, 8 years old and crying silently behind duct tape, eyes wide with terror that no child should ever have to feel. Innocent in every way that mattered. And Quinn realized what Raven was really offering. A test. A way to prove that Quinn was just like Catherine. That she'd choose Steele's world over blood family. A way to justify everything Raven had done, every murder and threat and moment of terror she'd inflicted. The wire under Quinn's vest transmitted everything. Steele was hearing this. 50 bikers were hearing this. They'd be moving into position now surrounding the building, preparing to breach. But would they be fast enough? Could anyone be fast enough when a syringe only took 1 second to empty and 90 more for its poison to work? Quinn took a step forward, hands visible, non-threatening. Her voice when she spoke was different, softer. The voice of someone who understood pain because she'd lived in it. There's a third choice. There's no third choice. There's always a third choice. Quinn took another step. You taught me that. You and Mom both. You survived after Catherine left. You took care of your parents alone. You learned to be invisible, to be forgotten, to be the responsible one while everyone worried about your sister. I know what that feels like. I was invisible for 3 months. I know how it changes you, how it makes you angry, how it makes you want someone, anyone to see you. Raven's expression flickered. Don't psychoanalyze me, kid. I'm not. Quinn was close now, close enough to see the tears Raven was fighting to hold back. I'm just saying I understand. You love my mother. So did I. She wasn't perfect. She was an addict. She made terrible choices. She hurt people. But she was also the person who held me when I was scared. Who taught me how to be invisible so I'd survive when she couldn't take care of me anymore. Who tried even when she was failing to be something better than what the drugs made her. She abandoned us. She was sick. There's a difference. Quinn's voice softened even more. And you're sick too, not with drugs, but with grief and anger and loneliness. You've been invisible so long, you don't know how to be anything else. So you made yourself into a ghost, into something terrifying, into the villain in your own story because at least villains are seen. At least villains matter to someone, even if it's just the people trying to stop them. Shut up. But Raven's hand was shaking, the syringe trembling against Lily's neck. Quinn kept talking, kept moving forward one careful step at a time. You called me little sister in your texts, not niece, sister, because that's what you wanted, isn't it? Not revenge. Family. Someone who understood what it felt like to lose Catherine. Someone who saw you, really saw you, not as the responsible daughter or the sister who stayed or the woman who took care of dying parents alone. Just as a person who's been hurting for so long, you forgot what it feels like to not hurt. I said, shut up. Tears were running down Raven's face now, the mask cracking, years of carefully constructed rage breaking apart under the weight of someone finally seeing her. Quinn extended her hand, slowly, like approaching a wounded animal that could still bite. I see you, Raven. I see you hurting. I see you angry. I see you grieving for a sister who died years before the overdose actually killed her. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry Catherine left you. I'm sorry you had to watch her destroy herself. I'm sorry our family failed you so badly that murder seemed like the only answer. The warehouse went absolutely silent. Just the sound of Raven's ragged breathing and Lily's muffled crying and Quinn's heartbeat hammering so loud she could feel it in her throat. You can kill us both. Quinn's voice was barely a whisper now. You probably will, but it won't bring her back. Won't make the pain stop. Won't make you visible in the way you want to be visible. It'll just make you a murderer. It'll just make you someone else who got erased by grief and anger in a world that doesn't care about invisible people. Quinn was close enough to touch Raven now. Close enough to see the individual tears tracking through makeup that had been applied to hide exhaustion. Close enough to see the trembling in hands that had held steady through murder and planning and months of patient stalking. Or you can put down the syringe. Let Lily go. And I promise, I swear on Catherine's memory, I will remember her with you. I will mourn her with you. I will make sure she's not forgotten. That you're not forgotten. That we're not forgotten. Sisters, both of us, because that's what we are. We're both Catherine's daughters. We both lost her. We both have to figure out how to survive that loss without becoming monsters. The syringe pressed harder against Lily's neck for one terrible second. Hard enough to dimple skin. Hard enough that Quinn could see the exact spot where the needle would enter if Raven's finger moved even a fraction of an inch. Then Raven's hand dropped. The syringe clattered to the floor, amber liquid, spilling across concrete in a puddle that caught light and looked almost beautiful if you didn't know it was poison. Raven sank to her knees, sobbing. Not crying, sobbing. The kind of crying that comes from a place so deep you didn't know it existed until it erupts like a geyser that's been building pressure for years. Quinn moved fast, ripped the duct tape off Lily's mouth, cut the zip ties with the pocket knife Steele had given her 2 weeks ago. Lily threw her arms around Quinn's neck and held on like drowning, like the only solid thing in a world made of water and fear. "It's okay, little sister. You're safe. I've got you. I've got you, and I'm not letting go." Behind them, Raven just kept crying. Decades of grief and anger and loneliness pouring out in sounds that barely seemed human. Sounds like a wounded animal finally able to express pain it had been carrying silently for so long. Bikers stormed in 30 seconds later, 50 men pouring through every entrance with weapons drawn and fury written across faces that had seen violence but never betrayal quite like this. They surrounded Raven before she could move, before she could reach for the syringe she'd dropped, before she could do anything except curl into herself and break under the weight of everything she'd been carrying alone. Steele reached Quinn and Lily first, dropped to his knees beside them, arms wrapping around both daughters, holding them like he'd never let go. Like he could protect them from the world through sheer force of will if he just held tight enough. "Are you hurt? Either of you? Did she—" "We're okay." Quinn's voice was muffled against his shoulder. "We're okay, Dad." It was the first time she'd called him that. Dad. Not Steele, not Sir, Dad. The word felt strange in her mouth, foreign, but also right in a way she hadn't expected. Steele looked at Raven being handcuffed by one of the brothers, still sobbing, still breaking apart. His expression was complicated. Rage and grief and something that might have been understanding mixed together. "Don't hurt her." Quinn's voice made him look back at her. "She kidnapped your sister. She killed Catherine. She terrorized you for weeks." "I know." Quinn met his eyes. "But she's also my aunt. She's family. She's sick and alone, and she needs help, not prison, not more pain. She needs someone to see her the way Lily saw me when I was invisible in your basement. She needs someone to remember she's a person, not just a monster." Steele stared at his daughter for a long moment, then at Raven, then back at Quinn. "You have a bigger heart than anyone I've ever met. You know that. I learned from watching you with Lily. Family's worth saving. Even when they're broken, especially when they're broken." The police arrived, then paramedics, then news crews who'd somehow gotten wind of the standoff and wanted their footage, their story, their piece of the viral sensation that had started with a homeless girl doing CPR on frozen grass. But Steele's brothers formed a wall between the cameras and Quinn, protecting her from the spotlight she'd never asked for. Raven was taken away in an ambulance, not a police car. Psychiatric evaluation. The courts would eventually rule her mentally unfit to stand trial, recognizing that decades of untreated trauma and grief had broken something fundamental in her ability to distinguish between justice and murder. She'd spend time in a facility, not a prison, getting help, slowly learning to be visible in healthy ways instead of destructive ones. The ghost was gone. In her place was just a woman named Raven who'd loved her sister too much and hurt too deeply and needed someone to see her pain before it consumed her completely. Several months passed. Winter gave way to early spring, Chicago thawing under March sun that felt like forgiveness. Quinn stood in the parking lot of Riverside Grove Community Center on a morning unseasonably warm for the season, watching 20 homeless kids ages 8 to 16 circle around a disassembled motorcycle. The bike was old, donated by one of the Hell's Angels, but it ran. Or it would run once these kids learned how to put it back together. Quinn was 15 now. Her birthday had come and gone 2 weeks ago with a celebration that felt surreal. Cake, presents, a house full of bikers who'd become something like uncles over the months of living in Steele's new place, the one with 3 bedrooms, so both daughters had their own space. Learning what family meant when it wasn't built on blood, but on choice and loyalty, and showing up even when it was hard. "Okay, everyone." Quinn's voice carried across the parking lot, clear and confident, in a way it hadn't been 6 months ago. "This is a 1995 Harley Sportster, basically a dinosaur in motorcycle terms. But it's simple, reliable, and perfect for learning. Today we're going to take apart the engine. Not because you need to know how to fix bikes, but because I want to teach you something more important than mechanics." A girl named Bryn, 13 years old with hollow eyes that Quinn recognized from her own mirror 6 months ago, raised her hand. "What's that?" "That broken things can be fixed." Quinn met Bryn's eyes and held them. That just because something looks destroyed doesn't mean it's worthless. That with the right tools, the right help, the right patience, you can take something people have given up on and make it run again. Make it matter. Make it visible. She caught Steele's eye where he stood in the back, supervising, making sure the kids stayed safe. Beside him, Lily was helping younger children, showing them how to hold wrenches properly, chattering away about motorcycles like she'd been born into this world instead of dropped into it through tragedy. The last 6 months had been strange and difficult and sometimes wonderful. Quinn had caught up on education through online school, started therapy with someone who understood trauma and homelessness and what it meant to survive by being invisible, moved into a house with heat and food and people who cared if she came home at night, learned what it felt like to be visible in ways that didn't hurt. She visited Raven once a month. The visits were hard, awkward, painful in the way that healing always hurts before it helps, but they were necessary. Raven was getting better, slowly, learning to talk about Catherine without rage consuming everything else, learning to grieve properly instead of turning grief into weapons, learning that being seen didn't require being terrifying. The ghost was gone. The woman who remained was just Raven, broken but healing, invisible but learning to step into light. The kids worked on the engine for 2 hours. Quinn circulated, answering questions, correcting mistakes, praising effort. Some of these kids would return to the streets tonight. Some had shelters. A few had been placed in foster care, but kept coming back to these classes because here they weren't cases or statistics or problems. Here they were just kids learning to fix motorcycles and maybe in the process learning that they could be fixed too. When class ended, most of the kids drifted away, but Bryn lingered. 13 years old and homeless for 4 months and carrying weight in her eyes that reminded Quinn painfully of herself. "Quinn, can I ask you something?" "Of course, the video, the one of you saving that little girl from the fire. Was it as scary as it looked?" Quinn thought about lying, about making herself sound braver than she'd felt. But these kids deserve truth. "It was terrifying. I thought I was going to die. I thought she was going to die. And for a few minutes on that frozen lawn doing CPR, I didn't know if all the effort in the world would be enough to bring her back. But you did it anyway." "I did it anyway." Quinn met Bryn's eyes. Because being invisible is safe, but being visible is how you save people, how you make a difference, how you stop being the person things happen to and start being the person who makes things happen. You're here, you came to this class, you ask questions, you're already visible, you're already braver than you think you are. Bryn nodded, slowly processing this, then quietly, "Thank you for seeing us." After the class, Quinn, Steele, and Lily drove to the cemetery. They visited every month on the 7th, the day Quinn was born 15 years ago. Catherine's grave was simple, a small headstone, fresh flowers always present, replaced weekly by people Quinn didn't know, but who apparently remembered her mother before the drugs. Today, Quinn brought daisies, Catherine's favorite according to Raven, one of the few memories the sisters now shared during their careful, painful visits. Quinn knelt beside the grave. Lily knelt beside her, adding her own flowers with the serious concentration of a child who understood death better than most adults. "Hey, Mom." Quinn's voice was soft, intimate, the voice you use when talking to someone who can't answer but you hope can hear. "It's March 7th, my birthday. I'm 15 now. Can you believe that? Feels like a lifetime since August, since I found you in that bathroom and didn't know how to save you." She paused. Steele stood back, giving them space but present, always present now. "I found Dad, found Lily, found a family I didn't know I needed, teaching homeless kids how to fix motorcycles, living in a house with heat and food and people who notice when I come home. I'm visible, Mom, really visible, the kind of visible you always wanted to be but couldn't figure out how when the drugs were louder than everything else." Quinn touched the headstone, cold marble warming under her palm. "Raven's doing better. She asks about you, about what you were like before everything got bad. I tell her stories, the ones I remember, the good ones before the addiction ate everything else. I think it helps her, helps both of us. We're learning how to be family even though we started as ghosts haunting each other." Lily added softly, her small voice carrying weight. "We miss you, Aunt Catherine. I didn't know you, but Quinn talks about you all the time. You sound like you were brave and kind, and you loved Quinn so much. Thank you for keeping her safe until she could find us." They sat in silence for a few minutes. Then Quinn stood, brushed off her jeans, took Lily's hand. "Come on, little sister. Let's go home." That night, the house was full. Steele had invited 20 brothers over for Quinn's belated birthday celebration. Not a big party, just family. People who'd stood with them through fire and betrayal and fear. People who'd proven that loyalty meant more than patches and promises. They brought gifts, practical things from practical men who showed love through action instead of words. Motorcycle gear size for Quinn. A new leather jacket with Hell's Angels patches earned through months of proving herself. Books about mechanics and engineering. Tools of her own because Steele said every rider needed their own tools, needed to be able to fix what broke. Lily gave Quinn a drawing, not the prophetic nightmares from before the fire, but something different, beautiful. A picture of two girls standing in front of a house holding hands smiling under a sun that looked warm and safe and permanent. Sisters. And underneath in Lily's careful handwriting, "We saved each other." Quinn hung it on her bedroom wall where she'd see it every morning when she woke up. A reminder of how far they'd both come, how they'd both chosen to be visible, to be seen to matter. Late that night after everyone had left and Lily had fallen asleep clutching the stuffed bear Quinn had given her months ago, Quinn stood on the porch with Steele. Father and daughter looking out at Chicago lights in the distance, both of them quiet, both of them thinking. "You did good today," Steele said finally, "with those kids, with everything. I'm proud of you." "I learned from you." Quinn's voice was soft. "You could have sent me away that night. Could have believed I was a con artist like Torch said. Could have protected yourself instead of protecting me. But you chose to see me, to believe me, to give me a chance I never thought I'd get. You earned that chance." Steele put his arm around her shoulders. "Every day you earn it again. By being brave, by being kind, by refusing to let the world make you small, even though it tried hard enough. Your mother would be proud. Hell, I'm proud enough for both of us." They stood in comfortable silence. Then Quinn asked the question she'd been thinking about for weeks. "Do you think we'll ever really be safe, or is there always going to be another threat, another betrayal, another ghost waiting?" Steele considered this. "I don't know. This life isn't safe. Brotherhood isn't safe. Being visible isn't safe, but being invisible wasn't safe either. You nearly froze to death in my basement. So maybe the question isn't about being safe. Maybe it's about being alive. Really alive. Surrounded by people worth fighting for, even when fighting is hard." Quinn thought about the homeless kids learning to fix motorcycles. About Lily drawing pictures of sisters instead of fires. About Raven slowly healing in a facility paid for by the family she'd tried to destroy. About 1,000 bikers who drop everything to protect two girls they barely knew 6 months ago. "Yeah," she said finally. "I think you're right. Happy birthday, kid." "Thanks, Dad." The house lights glowed warm behind them. Inside, Lily slept safely with no nightmares tonight. Upstairs in Quinn's room, the drawing hung on the wall. "We saved each other." And outside, Chicago stretched endless, under March stars full of invisible people who just needed someone to see them. Quinn pulled out her phone, scrolled through messages from the kids she taught thanking her for the class, asking about next week, requesting help with problems that had nothing to do with motorcycles and everything to do with surviving another day on streets that didn't care. She posted one final message to social media. The last post she'd make about the fire, about the rescue, about everything that had happened. A photo of her teaching the class surrounded by homeless kids, all of them smiling, all of them visible in a way they hadn't been before. The caption read, "6 months ago, I was invisible. Cold, hungry, forgotten. I thought survival meant hiding, disappearing, making myself small enough that the world couldn't hurt me. But I was wrong. Survival means being seen. It means risking everything to save someone else. It means choosing family, choosing courage, choosing to matter even when it's terrifying. To every invisible kid reading this, I see you. You matter. You're not alone. And someday when you're ready, choose to be visible. Choose to be seen. Choose to save someone else the way someone saved you. Because that's how we survive. Not by hiding, but by standing up, being counted, and refusing to let the world erase us. We're visible now. All of us. And we're never going back. The post went live. Within minutes, 10,000 likes. Within an hour, 100,000. Within the day, it would hit millions, spreading across platforms and demographics and into the feeds of people who needed to hear that invisibility wasn't permanent, that broken things could be fixed, that survival was possible even when the world tried its hardest to erase you. But Quinn wasn't watching the numbers climb. She was standing on the porch with her father looking at Chicago lights, thinking about tomorrow's class and next week's lessons, and all the invisible kids who needed someone to teach them that they mattered. Steele's phone buzzed. He checked it, smiled, showed Quinn. A message from Lily's teacher about an essay the 8-year-old had written. The subject line said, "Your daughter's hero." The essay was simple, written in handwriting that wobbled with effort but carried truth in every misspelled word. My hero is my sister Quinn. She saved me from a fire, but she also saved me from being alone. She taught me that scary things can happen, but we can be brave anyway. She taught me that family is people who choose to love you. She taught me that being a hero isn't about being strong. It's about being there when someone needs you. I want to be like Quinn when I grow up, brave and kind and visible, because she taught me that hiding doesn't keep you safe. Love keeps you safe. Family keeps you safe. Being seen keeps you safe. I love my sister. She's the best hero ever. Quinn read it twice, then handed the phone back to Steele with tears in her eyes. Tell her I love her too, and that she's my hero right back. The night grew late. Stars emerged over Chicago, brilliant and cold and permanent in a way human lives never were. The city breathed and moved and lived full of invisible people, invisible ones, full of broken things waiting to be fixed, full of ghosts becoming real and real people becoming family. Quinn had started this journey in a basement, cold, hungry, alone, invisible. She'd saved a little girl from fire, exposed traitors, found a father, gained a sister, earned a vest, faced a ghost and chosen mercy over revenge. And now she stood teaching homeless kids that visibility was power, that being seen was strength, that the world couldn't erase you if you refused to disappear. The ghost in the basement had learned to breathe, had learned to be human, had learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let yourself be found. And in a city full of forgotten people, in a world that erased the vulnerable and discarded the broken Quinn and Lily and Steele, and 1,000 brothers and 20 homeless kids and one healing aunt were proving something important. That family was choice. That visibility was courage. That the invisible ones, the forgotten ones, the broken ones were worth saving, worth seeing, worth fighting for. Because everybody deserves to be visible. Everybody deserves to matter. Everybody deserves someone who'll run into the fire when they're burning. And Quinn would keep running into fires for the rest of her life, teaching kids, fixing motorcycles, being visible, being brave, being seen. Because that's what heroes do. That's what sisters do. That's what family does. They show up. They stay. They choose to be visible even when it's terrifying. And they teach other people to do the same. After class the following week, Bryn approached Quinn with something urgent in her eyes. Quinn, there's a girl outside. She's been sleeping in the alley behind the center for about a week now. Won't talk to anyone. Won't take food. Just sits there. She looks like you did in that video, before the fire, scared and alone and trying to be invisible. Quinn's heart clenched. She knew that look, had worn it herself not so long ago. Where is she? Bryn led her to the alley. There, curled against a dumpster in clothes too thin for March weather, was a girl maybe 12 years old. Dark hair tangled and dirty, eyes hollow with hunger and fear, and the desperate hope that if you made yourself small enough, the world would forget to hurt you. Quinn knelt down slowly, non-threatening, the way you approach wounded animals that could still run. Hey, I'm Quinn. You hungry? The girl's eyes flickered up, met Quinn's for just a second, then dropped again. But she nodded, small, barely visible, but a nod nonetheless. Come inside with me. Let me teach you something about motorcycles and about being visible. The girl hesitated, fear warring with hunger, warring with the desperate loneliness of being invisible for too long. I was like you, Quinn said softly. 6 months ago, I was sleeping in basements and stealing food and trying so hard to disappear that I almost succeeded. But someone saw me anyway. Someone fed me crackers in the dark and called me friend when I was nobody. And it changed everything. The girl looked up again. Really looked this time. Seeing Quinn not as a threat, but as someone who understood. Will you teach me how to be visible without getting hurt? Yeah. Quinn extended her hand. I'll teach you. That's what we do here. We teach invisible kids that broken things can be fixed. That you can be seen without being destroyed. That survival isn't about hiding. It's about finding people who see you and choosing to let them in. The girl took Quinn's hand. Her grip was weak from hunger, but her eyes held something new. Hope, maybe, or the beginning of trust, or just the recognition that invisibility, while safe, was also its own kind of death. Quinn led her inside where Steele and Lily were cleaning up tools, where 20 other kids who understood what it meant to be forgotten were learning that they mattered, where a community of broken people was teaching each other how to be whole. The cycle continued, invisible kids being found, one at a time, one hand extended, one choice to be seen instead of hidden, one decision to run into the fire instead of away from it, and Quinn, who'd been the invisible girl in the basement just months ago, was now the one doing the finding, the one extending hands, the one teaching that visibility wasn't weakness but strength. That being seen was how you survived when the world tried to erase you. She looked at the new girl, seeing herself reflected in those hollow, frightened eyes, and smiled. Welcome, Quinn said. Welcome to being visible. It's scary at first, but I promise you it's worth it. You're worth it, and we're going to prove it together. The girl smiled back, small, tentative, but real. And somewhere in heaven or the ether or wherever souls went when bodies gave out, Catherine was watching her daughter teach invisible children that they mattered, that they could be seen, that they could be saved, just like Quinn had been saved, just like Lily had been saved, just like Raven was being saved from the ghost she'd become. One person at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of visibility at a time, until the invisible became seen, until the forgotten became remembered, until the broken became whole. That was Quinn's legacy. Not the viral video, not the Hell's Angels vest, not even the family she'd found in fire and ashes. Her legacy was every invisible kid she taught to be seen. Every broken thing she helped fix. Every person she showed that survival wasn't about hiding, but about standing up and being counted and refusing to disappear. We're visible now, she'd written. All of us, and we're never going back. It was a promise, a vow, a truth she'd carry for the rest of her life. The invisible girl in the basement had become the visible woman teaching others to be seen, and that made all the difference.